right, guys. So we have a review from my homeboy Charles Pisano, and he says, a great new addition to my weekly listens. Ivan and Sumed bring a great combination of dynamism, wisdom, and insights. The energy these two hosts bring is that of good friends with expertise, dissecting a myriad of topics relating to the experience of men. It's a great view.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. It's a great view into the male psyche, even for a female audience member, in my opinion. Keep up the great content, boys. Thank you. Bro.
So you about to enjoy this podcast. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Better Man Podcast with Ivan and Sumed.
Welcome back to the Better Man Podcast
with Ivan and Sumed.
What's good, y'all?
In this podcast episode, we're going to be talking to you about anger. And is it good? Is it bad? Do you need it? Do you not need it? Ooh.
Gossip Girl, like XOXO. Yeah, anger. One letter away from danger, eh? I became Canadian for a second there. One letter away from danger, eh?
You know, a lot of people think of anger as like a bad thing, especially because, well, when we break down the levels of energy, right? And then we break down the levels of energy into three categories. There's the higher levels of energy where we have things like unconditional love, right? And divinity. There's the middle.
It's funny because it's like your middle finger, like unconditional love. Yeah.
You know, we got unconditional love, and in the middle. So out of the third one, in the middle we have like things like creativity and intelligence, right? And in the lower vibrations, we have things like anger, pride, sadness, resentment, regret, depression, hopelessness, hatred. Shame, guilt, right? You know, so in the lower level of vibrations of energy, we think these are the bad ones, right? Just because they're low, and somehow being low is bad, right? And honestly, like I'm seeing this right now as I said it. There's like a major ungroundedness in humanity as a whole. Right? Wouldn't you agree? There's, especially right now, there's a lot of fear. It's fear-driven stuff.
For sure. And
the demon of the root chakra, which is the first chakra, which is the one that's by the feet, is where we deal with fear. It's the demon, right? Interesting thing now. Something else that just popped into my head. Right? My logic is running. When people like bow down. Right? Why is that seen as a very humble thing? Right? Because we're going to the lowest part of the human body. We're bowing down to their feet, right? That's the lowest part of the human body, right? So a lot of interesting ideas that we're just starting off right now.
Yeah. There's also like, I heard something called psychophobic language and psychoeuphoric language. So like fear, there's a language associated with fear. So I don't know this primarily too much, but I've heard that there is a distinction in terms of how we speak to ourselves and how it can escalate our fear or anger more. Like if I'm angry, right, and I'm pissed off, right, it's going to make us more pissed off. But if we say like, I'm peeved or something like stupid, you know, like something funny, like this guy's, you know, tickling my whiskers right now. Something really stupid, right? It makes you laugh and it makes you raise the vibration. And
yeah, totally.
So yeah, our language can definitely make us more angry and more prone to rage.
Something that I tell people is interestingly, something I've learned. Um, we have 7 identities for the 7 chakras. The second chakra is the identity to the emotions, right?
Right.
And it is important, right, as we're developing as humans to be able to identify with our emotions, right? Because then we can recognize where it is that we need to work on, or
Right.
what is it that's actually wrong with us or the environment around us, right? Because that's the whole point of feelings. Feelings are there to guide you, right? I mean, even feelings are the universal language. Like, you know, even animals respond to feelings, right? Like, they're not looking at your words, they don't see your words, right? They just, like, they feel you, right? That's why, like, some kids, they get near the dogs and stuff, and like the animals are like, oh, like, this is like a good person, right? And maybe like some other strange adult is like walking by, and I mean, maybe that adult does not trying to do anything bad, but typically, like, adults, like, they've been like pummeled into the ground, their fucking worldview by the entire sheep people that continuously,
Sheeple.
the
The
sheep
sheep people is the
who
sheeple.
are bowing the loudest, and then they're like, oh, it's like this then, and so they're carrying something within them, and the dog can sense, like, there's something unpleasant about this
Mm.
person.
Do you think that animals can feel much more complex emotions like gratitude, confusion, um, you know, much more complex rather than fight or flight, danger?
One time I saw this video of a jaguar. Oh, it was a cheetah, I believe. And the gazelle just had her child.
Whoa.
Um, and the gazelle
Wonder
was
what
there.
that looks like. That's wild.
The gazelle was like just there, like by herself. There's nobody else there. The cheetah just kind of slowly walks up, right? And the gazelle sees, and she just dashes off, right? I mean, there's nothing she can do right there in that point. I mean, if she stays, she's gonna get eaten, and her baby gets eaten, right? And then she can't make
Yeah.
more babies. She can't keep the population growing of gazelles, right?
Right.
Um, so I mean, I've also seen instances where the gazelle jumps in front of a crocodile so her baby can cross the lake, and the baby goes with the rest of the crowd. But in this case,
Yeah.
there's nobody else there, so she's forced to take off. And
Yeah.
there's people recording this, right? The cheetah grabs the baby, right, and looks left and sees the cameraman, and suddenly you can see in the cheetah's face, like, this, like, I know I'm doing something kind of bad,
Whoa.
and
Damn.
they're forced to, like, I mean, literally, like, you could see it in the animal's face expression, and their body literally just changed. It morphed into, like, I'm being watched, and suddenly I'm aware that what I'm doing is not
Mm.
is not that very great. It's kind of shameful. It's kind of, you can see the shame in the cheetah's face.
Whoa.
So it's very
That's
conflicting there,
interesting.
because they're like, well, I have to eat, but then killing a baby, it's vulnerable, right? If you hunt down like a bigger animal, well, it's like, well, you're smarter, right? If I got you, what I mean, you've had your time to train, to run, and get strong. If I hunt you down, you lose. Well, in the words of nature, you deserve to die because the natural selection, right? But the baby, it can't do anything, right? So it's just kind of
Oh,
like,
interesting.
very interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of that feeling of like when the moment when you get caught doing something, you have this feeling of like self-deception. It's almost like I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm doing it, and like that feeling, like you can just know that feeling, right? Everybody resonates and relates to that feeling, And I think that it's so important
Mm.
that, we sort of explore that, because it's like, in AA, they say we're only as sick as our secrets, right? And when we start to
Mm.
hide, or when we feel like we're caught, it gets us to totally like confront our own ego, right, in that
Mhm.
moment. And for that one animal, like, it's like confronting.
If you would like to contact Sumed for peak performance coaching, go to @FlowZone Academy on Instagram. That's FLOZONE Academy. If you would like to connect to your higher self, contact Ivan at odd.resilience. That's ODD.resilience.
Like, I'm thinking about it like this, right? Like, I know it's a really silly example, but imagine if, like, Doritos, right? Like, Doritos were giant and it was like running around like a gazelle, and we were human beings running after a Dorito.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Okay.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you had like, you imagine, like, a Dorito becoming personified. You know what I mean? It has little
It's got
legs and stuff.
legs.
Yeah, it's legs and shit. And then it's giving birth to these tiny little Doritos, right? And the gazelle has a tiny little Dorito in the mouth, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
And imagine the same scenario. The camera catches it, but then it feels bad for the tiny Dorito. Now it changes the paradigm, right? Because it's like, we think of a Dorito as not a life. Like, it isn't alive in a sense.
Like it doesn't
So,
have the choice whether it gets eaten or not.
right, absolutely. And yeah, what do you think about that, bro? Because I have weird thoughts like this, but like, what do you think about, like, if, for instance, that were to happen to us, if we had a culture like that, where we had to still hunt for food? I mean, technically we are still hunting. It's just now the hunting ground has become the supermarket, right? Where things are already hunted for us.
You know, um, I'm gonna answer this quickly, and then I want to come. I want to come back to this other point that you made in towards the beginning that I
Yeah.
found really interesting. So we have lost our ability to be human, right? I'm gonna say that away. Oh, I'm gonna say that away. I'm gonna say it again. Our humanness is shamed, right? A popular saying, a pop culture saying is humans are a cancer to Earth, right? I mean, we're
That's
not,
a popular saying.
bro. It is, dude. I mean,
Who says that?
they said it in the Matrix. They do it in like
Oh,
eco memes where they put like a picture of like
oh yeah.
Earth and like humans
Ego
beating
and
it
then
up.
eco. Yeah.
Ego, yeah. And like, I mean, they're just kind of like, in a way, yes, like there are some humans who are raping, nature, and other humans who continue to propel by buying these products. But I know I don't think, but like this whole thing of like shaming humans, right? And then this shaming of being human goes into your emotions, right? Like I was
Mm,
saying, where we get shamed for the emotions that we have, these lower level emotions,
like
but
anger,
really
yeah.
they're just come with being human. It's just something that happens to humans. Like you suffer not because life is so fucking hard, but because you're human, and that's part of being human.
Mm,
Okay, and then now I
yeah.
want to go back to that point that you mentioned earlier
Yeah. Right.
on the language that propels our emotions, right?
Yeah.
I might have mentioned this before, but I like to say it again. Oh, okay, fuck. Okay, I remember because I remember I was talking about the chakras and how identity to the emotions, right? So as we develop, we have to identify with our emotions, right? So that we
Mm,
understand the world around us. But then, right, to go even higher in this development,
mm,
we then have to detach ourselves from our emotions, where we're like, hey, you know what? I'm not my feelings.
Yeah.
I have feelings, right?
Yes.
And or then you can continue to say, I'm experiencing feelings. I'm experiencing this. I'm feeling this sensation in my body, right? I'm feeling this
Yeah.
like heat inside my chest, right?
It's like an observation. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And what I like to tell people is how can you make that your statement more factual? How can you add more facts into it? How can you make it more real? Right?
Yeah.
Because people will say shit like I'm fat, right? And it's so popular to say that. It's so fucking popular to say I am fat.
It
Really, I
becomes
see.
an
Because I'm
identity,
looking at a
man.
human. I see your legs. I see your eyes. I see your head. You know, I see your arms.
Right. I see what you're saying because the fat is just a number on a scale, right? It's not that they are fat. It's just like it's just a number. When we can look at the fact of what that is, then they can actually work towards maybe gaining a better size or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Because you could say instead, you could say, "I have fat." Wait,
Yeah.
wait. How can I make this more true? How can I make this more like easier,
Mm,
more soft? Soften up the statement. You could say, "Well, I have stored energy in my body." Right, because that's what fat is. What are calories? Calorie is just a measurement of energy, right? Calorie.
yeah.
So you have a stored energy. You're basically like a battery, right? So then you're like, well, how do I get into the body of my dreams? Well, I am this number, and this other number. I'm gonna set a goal for using to get to this number, right?
Yeah.
But by the way, though, like now putting my perspective of like nutrition and fitness, I actually don't aim for numbers.
Mm,
I aim for appearance, right?
yeah.
Because my appearance will tell me, what's going on. But then when it comes to like blood work, I do look at numbers.
Right.
Um,
Totally. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like how when they say that, Jesus walked on water, right? He was like walking up on the emotions. So he's not like stepping into the water and sinking into the emotions, right? He's walking on the water. So it's like he's able to still feel it, but he's not drowning in them, if that makes sense. Like that's
mhm,
kind of the symbolism that I understand from that.
mhm. Yo, you were telling me that you've been feeling a lot of anger. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, man. So I've been actually kind of using ways to cope with my anger by like lifting weights and things like that. But I
Mhm,
noticed that sometimes that actually makes me more angry because
mhm,
it's like raising the testosterone or something is happening with
mhm,
more of that. So yeah, just like little things, like someone upsets me with something that they say, or like I hear something like not really supporting my mission and I get annoyed at that, and even before kind of reflecting, I feel like I want to lash out, and I know it consciously that it's kind of like me having to work on a boundary of some sort, or like being able to calm myself down, and which is something that I do. When I feel angry, I feel like
mhm,
I just sit with the anger and I'm like, what's going on here? What is this trying to tell me? What is this trying to teach me? And
mhm.
oftentimes I'll just put on my headphones and
Do
listen
you
to
end
some
up
music.
do you end up getting an answer
Yeah,
on the aspect of what is this trying to teach me?
yeah, man. Oftentimes I do. And it takes a little bit of that delay time or creating much more space that helps me to confront what this anger is actually saying to me. But if I'm acting immediately based on my angry impulses, I might just say something in the heat of the moment, or, that I don't really maybe need to say, but it comes out in that moment. Um,
So what are those
and so
lessons?
the lessons from sitting with my anger, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. So what is that like has like taught you?
Hmm. I think one thing that it's taught me is assertive empathy. So
Mm-hmm.
like I can assert myself, but at the same time put myself in somebody else's shoes. It doesn't need to be one or the other,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's something that I came across recently, that idea.
Yeah. Did you see that's really cool. Did you see the new post that I made? A recent one on anger?
I don't think so, but maybe you want to clarify it.
It was the one where it said, my therapist told me something about anger today. She said that you get angry because you know you should be treated better than this, right?
Mm,
And
for sure.
typically, I mean, that's like the fact. That's a straight fact where when
Yeah.
we either get annoyed or frustrated, it's just like things should be better than this.
Yeah, you kind of
And
feel powerless as well in the situation. You're like, I can't control it, and so it comes out as rage.
I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of times, what I'm thinking, for you, and it's a situation that I've recently been through a lot as well, was this I had a lot of anger inside of my navel chakra, right? Which
Mm.
has a lot to do with my navel, has to do with your actions, right?
And identity too, yeah.
There is it's the identity to your actions,
Mm,
because remember, each chakra has their own identity.
right.
So in that
So
one,
it's the identity of the person who takes action.
no, it's the identity you identify with your actions. So let's
Oh,
just
okay,
say,
identify with my actions. Okay, got it. Yeah.
uh-huh. So then like let's just say, if you're not allowed to like, let's say, stand up for yourself as a kid, which is that's the exertion of your willpower, right? And when your willpower gets denied or pushed back, it creates this like suppression of like, oh, don't do this, right? I'm not allowed to be,
Yeah.
myself, who I truly am. And I was reading the chapter on the navel chakra in the book Eastern Body, Western Mind by
Fantastic book. Dude,
Anadea
that
Judith.
book is epic. Yeah,
And
really
she
good.
says, she's talking, she's saying, and suddenly, like, I'm just getting angry and angry and angry, right? And it wasn't what she was saying that was making me angry, is that what she was saying was removing the blockages that were holding back anger, right? So the anger was inside and it was stored, and she was saying these things. She was saying facts. She was literally just saying facts, right?
And
But
so the blockages were like melting off, and then the anger that was repressed was coming out. Is that what you're saying?
exactly, because
Ah,
truth removes illusion. And as I was
ooh,
hearing this truth, I was
nice.
like, man, I was so fucking pissed. I was so pissed that day, dude. I
Mm.
was incredibly pissed. And then, yeah, and later my girlfriend, she told me like, uh, that she saw a red in my navel chakra, which is like anger, and she was helping me clear it
Mm.
out, energetically, sending me love
Mm.
over the time space continuum.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Nice.
so a lot of times what happens is, as we evolve into higher levels of consciousness, and as we take on more responsibility over who we are and who we want to be and what we want to accomplish in this world, um, what will
Mm.
happen is that aspect of the smaller self that we once were, it has to go. So let's just say, like, they push you down and you go into fear, right? You
Mm.
stand up for yourself, you get smacked, and you go into fear, right? You don't go into bravery after that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, because if you do, you get your ass whooped like 10 times worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like every time I stand up for myself, then it's like courage, and then goes back to fear, right? And then from
Mm.
fear, right? So we have to go through that anger, right, in order
Yeah,
to get to the neutrality, to the creativity, to the intelligence, to the understanding, and to the love, then to this unity, right? So
for
it's like,
sure.
a lot of times when I work with clients, sometimes when I literally like all the time, clients, like people that I tend to work with, are like a bit codependent, you know,
Yeah.
and they say that people start calling them rude as they begin to express their boundaries. And I mean, in a way, they are rude. It is true. They are like a bit angry, like, you know, like, you don't have the right to speak like that to me. You don't have the right to treat me like that.
Mm,
You don't have the right to speak about my girlfriend, my daughter, my dog, like whatever it is in that specific way. And
mm,
then they say people are starting to dislike me, and I'm like, you know, it's okay. You're only going to be in this level of anger for a while, until you transcend it, right? But it's just part of the process of getting to a higher state of being.
yeah. 100%, man. So, I recently was a part of this event called Hypnotic Identity with the great Eric von Sydow, Hypnotica himself. And he was guiding me. Actually, no one else was kind of asking any questions or anything, but I noticed like he did a bit of a trance and I spoke up in that moment. I was like, what was really interesting was when you told us to embody a specific point that was our center. And for me, it was the throat, like right between the throat chakra and the heart, like that space, right? And so it was like the seat of my truth and my clarity of speaking out my expression, right? And so I don't know what happened, bro. He started speaking to me and I just got into an instant trance. And he unlocked, like I felt heat in this area, like more warm, more warm, more warm, more warm. And I was like, what is happening right now? And by the end of it, I just felt like a release in this. So he basically cleared my throat chakra by him just having this hypnotic induction, right? And in the beginning, it was something interesting that he said. I was like, yeah, it reminds me to like speak my inner truth. And he was like, speak your inner truth? Why would anybody want to do that? That's awful. Why would you ever want to, And that like triggered me even more, right? And it was like, whoa. And so that sarcasm, it like opened something up inside of me because I was laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And with the laughter, I was like, ha, and it let out something in that
Mm-hmm.
moment when he was like, why would you ever want to do that? Like only losers speak their inner truth. Like, what the heck, man? Like that
Mm-hmm.
actually got me to open up. So I just wanted to share that because I thought that, yeah, you're totally right about the thing about truth. And like, we also hold an identity based on like the type of person that we are, right? And so we
Uh-huh.
repress the parts of ourselves that we don't want to accept as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I notice I get the most angry when I get triggered on something the most deeply personal to me that I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable with yet,
Mm-hmm.
or I haven't fully closed the loop on that thing yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know a lot of guys face this as well. It's like the moment when, let's say that someone emasculates you, right? Or says you're weaker as a man because you did this thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a lot of times I notice guys, my clients especially, or even I've faced this at times, where when I feel that, I feel an instant threat to my masculinity and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like lashing out. It's like how, any single comment that you make on a girl's page, now the result is someone commenting simp underneath your, what you've said.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like that thing. It's like this idea based on there's a way for you to be a man that isn't this, and there's a long list
Uh-huh.
of things. So it's unacceptable. And when you
Uh-huh.
resist that part of you that feels it's unacceptable,
Mm-hmm.
then it starts to build up and it
Mm-hmm.
becomes passive aggressiveness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I feel like a huge part of this is for us to step fully into our power and our ownership as men and confront that part of us that we're not willing to embrace or face and standing up for it.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
One of the identities. So watch. The navel communicates a lot with your throat, right? In terms of like they there's like a circle that goes through these, even though they all communicate with each other. These have like a special connection. They're like best friends, and
Yeah.
and so
And it goes through the heart as well, which is like the mediator, right? So it's like,
so through.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. But well, what I'm trying to get to is more like sometimes it doesn't go through here because what I'm saying, like they literally like communicate with
Okay.
by themselves like that.
I see.
Um, the voice is what you use to speak your truth,
Right.
right? So you're also speaking. You have to say like, oh, I don't like this. Oh, please don't do this, right? Right? And, I mean, you have to use your voice to exert your willpower at times.
Yeah.
Even though through
Yeah.
will can be thoughts, words, or actions, right? Words is one of them.
Yeah.
So,
Totally. Yeah.
so yeah, I did want to say that. And the identity of the throat is your creative identity. I'll explain what that means.
Yeah.
In this case, creativity means not like art or like dancing and stuff. It's more like, what is it that you are creating in the world, right?
Yeah.
Are you a contractor? Do you make tables? Do you make events? Do you host events, right? Or are you a mom? Are you a dad, right? So you identify with your roles, right?
Mm.
Of your creation, right?
Yeah.
Um,
That's true.
and one of my identities was, oh, I'm just a nice guy, right? I'm just a nice guy, And I had this, it was weird because my self-image, my inner image was not, let's say, parallel to my outer image, right? What I mean by parallel is like they didn't transition like in a straight, like doing, right?
Mm.
Um, so like I remember I was telling Ruchi one time, like a lot of people like they see me as like a naughty boy, like they say like, like I don't give a fuck, like they think like I don't care, right? When really I feel like I care a lot, right? In fact, I think I care more than most people, right? This is why I'm here. This is why I'm speaking, because I care, right? Um, but she was saying like, no, but you are a naughty boy. Like you do you do shit that other people don't do, and you break all these rules, and you just follow your own rules, right? Um, and in a way, yes, that is going against society, the norm. But my identity of I'm just like a nice guy, you know, came from this aspect of me growing up as a kid, and honestly not being able to stand up for myself so much, right? Not I mean, like, and see, the thing is, that too is a fucking lie, because I fucking stood up for myself all the fucking time. Like, I mean, I would get into fights in school and shit. Like, I mean, I didn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I did my own shit. Don't fuck with me, right?
Right.
But it's weird because I was still associating like, oh, I'm just a nice guy. I'm just like, like a real, like, fuck, how, like, I'm trying to come up like with the image of a nice guy, where it's like hair combed to the side,
Yeah.
and like they're wearing like a plaid shirt and khakis and some,
I know what you mean.
and their
I
shirts
get the
tucked
image.
in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like a Mormon
Yeah.
guy, right? But really, that wasn't
Totally.
even what my expression was, right? So I was not in alignment with my expression right now. Watch this. I'm about to get to the climax of this point.
Mm.
So I changed that, right? I stopped doing that, right? Recently I met up with a friend of mine, and we were doing some inner work. We were doing some workouts that I blended in with bioenergetics and stuff like that. And so when we got into my car and we're talking, we're driving somewhere first, I told him, yo, there's like a constriction in your throat, right? There's literally like a constriction in your throat. Like you're not able to talk properly. Like, and I showed him how he sounded, right? I constricted my throat the same way, right? Later the same day, I pointed out his shoulders. I was like, your shoulders are a bit high. They're a bit high. Can you push them down? He's like, no. I'm like, they're just like that. Like, when really, I
Yeah.
mean, they were kind of like that, you know? And so I told him, all right, tomorrow we're going to work out. We're going to do some fun exercises. We go, we do them. And at one point we're about to do, I told him to do an ah sound, sound, right? And he was not able to do it the way that I just did it, right? He can do ah, but the part was very difficult for him, right? So, I mean, really, the ah is like something you do. It's a release,
Right.
right? But he's not, he. I mean, you understand releases. Well, you could talk a little bit about this afterwards. But he wasn't able to release what was in there, right? So, you know, I mean, I didn't force him to do it too much. I just, I didn't force him to push it out, right? I just let him do the sound as loud as he could, right? And also I made him relax his jaw a bit more, right? To
That's huge.
open it up more, right? So it's more open. And then we did some shoulders exercises and stuff. And I mean, he spoke a bit different afterwards. His posture was a bit different afterwards. And what I told him was like, you have an identity with being like, you know, because he was telling me, I'm not a loud person. You know what I mean? And I told him, you're saying it's either loud or quiet, right? Instead of an in between, right? So you're kind of moving like all the way to the other side, because I mean, you're speaking in duality, right? When there's like, you know, a rainbow of variety of options. So,
Right. And sometimes you need to get loud, you know, in certain situations. So if he's saying I'm not a loud person, it's not getting him to fully express the
that aspect of
capability and
himself,
range.
he's denying that aspect of himself.
Right.
And what I realized was, like, later that day, I was just thinking about it, you know, because I think a lot. And I was like, the identities that we create for ourselves when we're younger, like that's like the initial goal, right? Because I mean, all of your actions and thoughts and words are for the purpose of a goal, to accomplish something, right?
Yeah.
And that was sort of like working out for him to a degree, right? Because I mean, he goes to like a top university. He works in engineering for some of the top, like the biggest weapon manufacturers in the U.S. Like, I mean, and he, as an intern, he was put in charge. He was like made like a manager for the company that he was working in. I mean, so I mean, he's doing good for himself, you know, because he's got a very active, you know, upper chakras. But the problem with this is so, okay, so it's good in the sense that he's like, well, I'm a good person, and as a good person, I'm not gonna, you know, be loud, but as a good person, I'm also gonna like be educated and be respectful. So those aspects are good, right? But then there's that there's like one aspect of the identity that holds you back, right? So it always goes down to identity, right? Who you think that you are, and that's what you're gonna learn to be of. So what I would recommend for you is to rewrite who you are or who you want to become every single day. Rewrite who you are, right?
Yeah.
Reclaim, right? Sometimes it's just like,
Yeah, and that's the affirmation I am, right? Also, which is related to the root. And I
yeah.
actually have that on my ceiling after you said it. I have I am blank. And every time I look up there, I create a new definition for my identity each day, which really helps to kind of reconvene and like get on with my day for the specific mission that I want for that specific day.
Mm-hmm.
So I just let my subconscious mind decide for me, like, who am I today? And it's a wonderful kind of exercise to do. And speaking about release, you know, there's emotional release, then there's also physical release, and there's different kinds of, you know, in between releases that we can kind of make up. Like, for instance, you know, you could write down, you know, the name of your past lover, put on a piece of paper, crumple it, and burn it in a fireplace, which is a kind of symbolic gesture of letting go of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, there can be a very emotional letting go where we see actual tears coming out of someone's eyes, where the endorphins are actually protecting their self and like oxytocin is being released, right? And it's just a physical sign of a release, like something is coming out from the eyes, something is being let go of. And so release doesn't have to be like only through the emotions. There can be different kinds of like bodily releases and things like that as well, which associate with held on trauma. So someone can have a trauma that's associated in their stomach that could be held onto as a stomach bug. I know this is kind of going weird and deep, but you know, for certain people, you know, they need to vomit something that is not helping them out. So they need to purge that, right? And it helps for certain people. That's why like fasting and all these things are great for detox, right? Because you're actually letting go of certain things that are, you know, kept holding on to, like, you know, colon cleanse or even these kinds of things, right? They hold certain events and memories in the bacteria of the stomach and things like that. So, and I think with his shoulders, like shoulders is generally associated with us, you know, our burdens. So if we hold other people's burdens a lot, our shoulders are going to be locked a lot. It's, imagine a guy like carrying the world on his back, like Hanuman in India, right? You'd kind of imagine like he's doing this, right? And so if someone has very constricted shoulders, it's either the fact that he's holding up other people's expectations of him. So maybe he sees, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't know the guy, you know him better than me, but you know, there's something in the shoulders to do with, you know, just being able to do that. Yeah.
I'll let him
an
know.
Expectation.
Let him know about him. I'll just tell him to watch this podcast.
Yeah, word. Absolutely.
Because yeah, I mean,
that's awesome that's awesome that he's, you know, doing work with you, because I feel that those people who are much more in the mind, like to do actual physical grounding stuff with them and like getting them in the earth, can get that energy flowing from the upper ones to the lower ones, and it creates such balance. So
yeah. Communication within your own body, right? It's like, how do the different aspects of you communicate inside of you, right? All these, you know, people think you're crazy if you have voices inside your head. What do you mean? Like, it's a perspective. It's the mind. The mind has ideas, and the ideas come in through a voice, right?
Bro, I wanted to ask you this question because my cousin brought it up, interestingly enough. So
Richard?
when you close, Shostika. So when you close your eyes, right, do you see actual pictures, or is it like darkness and it's kind of made up like mind images?
Well,
like, what do you see when you close your eyes?
Depends.
Do you see actual?
Depends for me. I mean, like, if I want to see something, I won't see it with this, right? Because think about this though, right? Sometimes you could be looking at something, but you're not actually looking at it. You're in your mind, right? Somebody might be like, "Are you looking at me?" "Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just kind of thinking in my head."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so like if I'm, it's like where attention goes, energy flows, right? So if I put my attention here, well, then I'll see.
Well,
I'll
give you an example. Like if I say close your eyes and imagine a tree that's purple. Can you imagine that actually? Like
Yeah.
can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, so there's certain people they have quantiphantasias. It's called some weird name where they
Mm-hmm.
can't actually visualize. Like they can't see the image, they
Mm-hmm.
just see
Mm-hmm.
darkness.
Okay,
And I'm
so
like wondering
I
like
can tell you about that.
what yeah, go ahead.
That is a situation where a lot of times people who have been through situations that were, you know, kind of tough on them, they close off their eyes so that they don't see what is happening around them, right? As a form of disconnecting, right? And what that creates is like shutters in front of the third eye, right?
Ooh,
Like a
okay.
blocking, right? Um, so there's an exercise that I learned if you want to train yourself to begin to be able to see first, to with intense clarity. If you want to have, if you want to create a life of your dreams, first you have to be able to create it in your mind, because you have to know what direction you need to move in, right? And the clearer the images, right, the more accurate your actions are into the direction of, you know, what it is you want. So this is the exercise.
Mm-hmm.
You could start by imagining a cup. Imagine it half full. Now imagine it half empty. Now imagine the water inside of the cup is blue. Now imagine the the cup suddenly now becomes a mug, right? And now it has coffee inside the mug, right? And so this whole thing is like learning to practice, right? You can, I mean, you could, well, what I would recommend for somebody is you could write a whole list of like objects, right?
Transform them, like go Transformers on it.
Yeah, like think one, then
Yeah.
think the next one, think until you see it, right? And then for the last one, right? Let's just say you do 10, right? Just like a simple exercise. The last one, we can make it, for this example, we can make it a pencil, right? You see the pencil, right? Well, now I want you to focus on the lead of the pencil on the tip,
Mm.
right? And now I want you to guide your sight from the tip where the lead is, and bring your sight all the way down, or you could say up to the top where the eraser is, right? So kind of
Mm.
like in visualizing, you know, the edges of the pencil, the
So it
yellowness.
slowly appears. So it's not there all at once. You're slowly like imagining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of
Mm.
like kind of like when they pan on a camera
Right.
in a movie where they're like they show it from like left to right, or
Mm.
up, or let's say they look at somebody's shoes and then they tilt the camera up, right? So it's like it's appearing as you're moving through it, right?
Mm. I love that technique, man. So yeah, I actually have another technique that I use. I think I mentioned it in my book as well. But basically, you want to watch like a really short film or anything with
Mm-hmm.
sound in it, and you blindfold yourself, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
imagine all the characters for yourself. You don't
Mm-hmm.
imagine it exactly how they are, but you create your own storyline and you try to visualize like who's
Mm-hmm.
there, what is happening in the scene, and invent your own scene. And that can really help because people who are blind, right, their other senses are heightened,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what this is teaching you actually is to use your other senses, and really it's helping you to crystallize your visualizations much more, and it's really great for imagination and being able to
Mm-hmm.
impact it.
You reminded
Yeah.
me of another technique, but look at this first.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. He's dead asleep, man. We went.
Yeah.
That's my doggy, everybody. We went to work out. I take him to work out with me, so let out some of that powerful doggy energy out of him. But now I fucked up the camera. It's okay. I will work this out. Oh yeah. So this other technique involves another person, It can be done with a friend. Or, you can contact either me or Sumed and we can guide you through it. It's very simple. So mythological stories have a purpose because through mythological stuff, we are able to understand the archetypes of the human psyche.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say Zeus, the god of thunder, and then who's the god of love?
Aphrodite.
Aphrodite, and then there's the messengers and all this sorts of stuff. The Greek
Hermes,
mythology is really good for this stuff. Any Bible stuff is really good, and essentially there's stories. There's really deep stories and really deep meaning in the conclusion of these stories. So somebody can read a chapter to you, an excerpt, to completion. It's best from beginning to end where the resolution ends. Because so you close your eyes and the person reads it to you as if they're narrating you in the story, right? So if in the story it says Richard went down the dark steps in looking for to enter his personal space, and then the person will read it to you and say, you are walking down the stairs into your personal space, right? And you can feel the cold railing on your hand, right? And they're just sort of describing, you're in the story. The story is basically about you, right? And then they talk about the arguments or whatever is happening, the conflicts, and then the resolution, and then that sort of completes. You're suddenly since you're in the story, you take on the knowledge of the resolution.
Yeah. It sounds kind of like narrative therapy or something, like storytelling with therapy together.
That's cool.
Right? It's like you going through the process of because every single character, right, has this kind of breakthrough moment or this epiphany or this great insight. So if you could bring a person, and just speak to them instead of Harry Potter, you read the Harry Potter to them as if it's, Fred, or whatever, and make them go through the process of going to this wizarding school and this whole journey for them to find out and reach their own kind of understanding. Because it's like those choose your own adventure books that you get. But the thing that annoyed me about those is there's only two choices, and it's still reinforcing duality, right? It's there's only page 3 or page 54. You can't go back the other way or whatever, right? And I feel that this world is full of infinite possibilities. It's not a choose your own adventure that only this or this, but sometimes we as people think that our life is a choose your own adventure. I can only do this or this. It's the same in Netflix. They have these shows now where you can choose.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes something that I learned actually on duality, right? Because I'm going to say the opposite of what you said, right? But I'm also going to acknowledge the Hermetic law of all truths are but half truths. And
I see what you're gonna say. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But I'm gonna say it for the audience. So so Sum said the duality is not so good, and there's more options, right? It's true. It's a very valid, very, very valid. When I first started taking the mentorship lessons from Dean Graziosi, big time millionaire, everybody listen up. he said you need to start thinking in duality. Does this make me money? Does this not make me money? Is this effective? Is this not effective? Right? Because I recently my girlfriend was telling me that she was talking to this girl because she has her own clients, and the girl was in an abusive relationship. All right, and then I went on to tell her, I basically like she gave me one sentence, and I told her everything that led up to that situation of her being in that, and she said, you literally just told me everything that she told me, right? Because I was talking about the chakras and stuff, and I told her she thinks she's still with him because she thinks that she can change him. And
Yeah.
and she said, and she goes to my girlfriend says to me, oh my God, she asked me, do you think I can change him? And I was like, yeah. So anyway, no, you can't change him, right? So in situations like this, we need to be able to think like in duality, in the aspect of duality. I mean, if I continue on this path, what's going to happen? Is it going to be good for me, bad for me? I don't like using these words too much, right? Effective, less effective. Assume you taught me that one.
Yeah, I got that actually from, are you talking about like instead of right and wrong and effective?
Yeah, that.
Yeah, I got that from Preston Smiles' book, actually.
Mm.
It's called Now or Never or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a great concept. Amazing.
So yeah, guys. So sometimes you will have to think in duality. Sometimes you'll have to think, well, I don't like either of these options. So what's the more possibility here?
Hmm. Or like one thing that helps as well is like, what's the truth of this? Because we sometimes we'll put a label on a truth, or we'll put an assumption on a truth, or we'll put a judgment on a truth, and it will become sort of distorted and glitchy.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can just see it for the facts instead of the feelings about it, then it sometimes gives us a better, like an objective point of view. But then we can, of course, we can have our own opinions about it and things like that based on our values. But
Mm-hmm.
it helps to
Mm-hmm.
sometimes just cut out the illusions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially like, Vince Calvin always talks about the false frames of the world, right? There's so many false frames of the world that you've been taught were a lie,
Like
right?
what?
And like, for instance, schooling, right? In terms of schooling, you're taught like many different things. Like you only have to talk back when, you can't talk back to the teacher. So that, in terms of authority,
Mm-hmm.
someone is like, someone in authority, you always have to listen to them, and everything you say to them,
Mm-hmm.
you can't ever say no.
Yeah, man. I used to hate that shit in school because it was like, I'm not talking. What do you mean I'm talking back? But bitch, I'm just telling you like why I think you're wrong. And I'm just telling you, I'm literally telling you my objective point of view. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you're telling me, this happened to me one time in science class. This girl in front of me, she turns around, she looks at me, and I was like, wow, right? And she was telling me that I was talking. I was like, I wasn't talking. I mean, I opened up my mouth, but I wasn't talking. She sent me to the principal's office. I went to the principal's office, and they were like, yeah, go back to class. I was like, all right. What were you saying? It was interesting.
What was I saying? I'm actually
You're talking
reminded by,
about false frames and removing illusion.
right. Yeah, I can think back to this moment when I was a kid. This was a really kind of traumatic event. I remember this being, but basically, like, they asked me, what's the color of the apple? And me as a kid, I was very inquisitive kid, very curious. I love to question things, right? And I was like, do you mean the inside of the apple or the outside of the apple? Which is a smart ass answer, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's like,
It's a
I
great
don't
question.
want to get it wrong. You know what I mean? Like, what are you asking?
Yeah. And the teacher, I remember I got in trouble for that, and I got hit with a scale, with a ruler, for that answer. And so I was subconsciously taught whenever I spoke up or questioned authority or questioned someone in power that I'm going to get, punished for it. So I kept silent. I kept silent most of my life. All my teachers, they'd put me in a random math class. I just accept it. I don't want to get hit with this subconsciously, right? This is not happening consciously, but in my life, right? I kind of believe this thing. And the thing to notice is it was a woman teacher. So my first interaction with feminine domination happened with a teacher, which then again comes back to like me, like in my own relationship with my mom, like who's a bit controlling, but I'm not saying that she is now, like we're on good terms now, but I'm just saying growing up, I felt like that, And also in my relationships, I noticed that with the women are having an upper hand. And so subconsciously, like I feared this. I'm getting really therapeutic here, but like basically, hopefully this can help a bunch of people who might have experienced something similar, right? So subconsciously, I was just telling myself that, I'm scared of the feminine because they're going to harm me in some way because of that, initial first moment of abuse that I faced, right? And when I pieced that together, well, like working with a therapist or working with like a practitioner, holistic practitioner, I was like, damn, like I get it now, right? And that was one of the missing pieces that got me to confront my own porn addiction, right? And that was really interesting. I was like, I didn't think that, that little thing, that addiction was related to something, way, 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 way back. I thought that this was something that, I was just kind of like, I just got into it or whatever, But in some ways, the mind doesn't want you to succeed. The mind just wants you to survive. Right?
Yeah.
And so it just takes this little piece of knowledge over like maybe thousands of bits of information in the subconscious mind, right? It takes this one little trauma, and it's like beep, 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 coding in the matrix, and it like sets up the life based on that one instance. But now that I have power over that, I'm like, man, like I'm so glad I got to that realization. So now, like people in my life don't have to, suffer based on my own, journey based on this, right? It takes power over the narrative again, because you're like, I realize that now, and now I'm able to confront something deeper as a part of myself and rise with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that with the audience. I know that's really deep and like personal, but it's true,
I was have you heard the book I think it's called A Conversation with the Devil. It's by the same guy. It's the same guy that wrote
Napoleon Hill, right?
Napoleon Hill. Yeah, Napoleon Hill. There's an audio version of it on YouTube.
Rich, yeah.
And at one point, so he's asking questions to the devil, right? Which I don't think he's talking to the real devil, right? And
maybe that's how he got rich, bro. You don't know. I'm just kidding.
He's asking like, well, why are people poor? And why do people get stuck in poverty? And da 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 da, right? And why do people have a tough time changing and implementing new habits and stuff like that? And the devil says, we take our experiences, right? With like all we need is a handful of experiences, right? And we compartmentalize, we put them in boxes, and we're like, when this happens, this also happens, right? All these related experiences, they group them together, right?
Yeah.
So what I noticed from a lot of relationships that I had as a younger me, and that I've noticed, that I've seen also many men struggle with it, is this trouble with women. It's like a big thing, in these days.
Yeah.
Now I'm understanding that physical punishment, right, as a kid, leads to this crooked understanding of love, because love is supposed to be, love is just like a soft thing, you know what I mean? But sometimes parents will say, oh, I'm hitting you because I love you, I'm doing this because I love you, right? Oh, I'm smothering you because I love you, right?
Right.
And it's like an invalidation of like space, right? And people will think, well, the same people that give me love, the same people that give me pain,
Also give me pain, yeah.
right?
Totally.
And this goes the popular saying that says, love hurts. No, it doesn't.
Mhm.
Love doesn't hurt. Love just feels good. Pain hurts, right?
Yeah.
And,
Or
and
your
that is the,
interpretation of love can hurt
and
you.
then we
Yeah,
take
for
these
sure.
experiences around the people who love us,
Mm.
right? And we give them the power to hurt us. Right now, let me just say something else. Right,
Mm.
we, by being in a relationship and loving someone in a to a degree, we are giving them the power to hurt us through the acts of
Right.
vulnerability, through the acts of giving, right? But I also want to clarify, right, that you don't have to feel hurt,
Mm.
right? Like you don't, it's in a way, to a degree, it is a choice to be hurt, right? Because it just takes like a mind shift. All you have to do is shift the way that you're looking at it, and when you change the way you look at things, the things you
The
look at
things you look
change.
at change. Hey, gang, 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 gang. Yeah, totally, man. Totally. Perspective is a huge thing, right? If you can look at your problem like an eagle looks at a little mice on the road,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or if you can look at it from like a mole's perspective from underground, if you look at
Mm-hmm.
the problem, you can see it from so many different angles and perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
It changes the way you look at it.
Something really cool just popped into my head, and this is something that I would encourage everybody to do anytime they're feeling overwhelmed with a problem. I
Mhm.
want you, like people say, make gratitude lists, right? Because that's like really good. I love gratitude lists because it's like you start creating like a domino effect of thoughts, right?
Yeah.
But I also want to encourage you to write a list of problems that are even bigger than this. But like try to like Soom said, like look at it like it's a little small mice, right? But you're like up in the air. So it's like try to make your problem small, because you can't deal with it because you feel so big. It feels so big. It feels overwhelming. You feel powerless to
Mm.
it, right? So it's like, well, what's a bigger problem than this? What's a bigger problem than this? Oh shit, I could have fucking cancer and get divorced and be bankrupt. Like, I mean, some
Oh,
people
is it
some
the
people go through shit like
trifecta?
that, homie. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. The
Like,
trifecta. Yeah.
trifecta. Like I could like I
That's
could get
true, man.
stabbed right now, or I could be fucking like anywhere else, whatever. You get the point.
Yeah. And that's the whole idea behind like the Stoic example of memento mori, right? Remember your death, right? Which kind of reminds you, like it gets you to take things very seriously and it changes your perspective around. I think I mentioned this in the last one as well, but yeah. Um, Super interesting idea. I was also thinking about this idea of attachment, right? Because attachment comes from the frequency of fear. So like let's say I'm attached to this one book, right? It's funny, it's called Enlightenment now. But anyway, um, let's say that I'm super attached to it. I love this. This is my favorite book. I'm zooming in on this one book. I'm not looking at all the other books in this edition. I'm not looking at the Library of Alexandria, right? I'm not looking I'm not looking at the Akashic records. I'm just focused on this one book,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so once I'm zooming into this, what attachment does is it makes us zoom into it. It gets very specific. But
Mm-hmm.
detachment is almost the zooming out and looking at the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I feel like that, like looking at things from perspective and different angles definitely helps also for you to detach, but also I wouldn't say detach it, it like makes the attachment into connection rather than just pure
Mm-hmm.
attachment, which is like from fear rather
Mm-hmm.
than a lovingness, right?
You know what? You make a really good point, and I really like that what you said. Of instead of its attachment, it's connection, right? It's a different word, but
Oh,
essentially it's kind of just for the most part, it's describing the same thing, right?
yeah.
But it's implying that that the other side is also like with it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
attachment, I would think like a hook. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
get you fucking some shit hooks onto your shirt. You don't want it. You unhook it. You know, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how I imagine it. It's like you know those like in jail cells they show cartoons like with this thing weighing behind them, right? It's like this heavy. They show it in some cartoons, like this heavy thing that's like like an ankle bracelet. It's
Oh,
like a
ha ha
weight.
ha ha. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's how I imagine attachment. It's like these two people are attached with this one weight. And the way I see connection is like they're communicating with that weight. So they're like taking it off, right? And they're using it as a phone or like one of those walkie-talkie things where you speak into one side and the other person hears you.
What? I don't know how that made. I don't know how that made sense. Like what you just said.
Okay, okay.
Communicating, like, look, I'll tell you, bro. This is like
let me give you an
communicating
example.
to a ball of metal and using it as a phone. Like, bro, come on, dude. I'm like, what?
I'll give you an example of what I mean. Okay, go ahead. Keeps talking.
All right, you're
I'll
getting
show
some
the
paper.
audience what I mean.
You're getting some
Yes.
paper. All right, I could say some stuff. Soom is a terrible person. While I was with him, while I was living in
Bruh.
London, in India with him, he tried to poison me. He tried to get me to marry his ugly cousin. I'm kidding.
London and India. Lindia. Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of how what I meant. Do you see this, guys?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Mhm.
So one is like one of those like, you know, you talk into one thing and then the other person can hear it on the other side.
Mhm.
And then one is just like what you mentioned is like this hook that like
Mhm.
hooks onto the heart. So yeah,
Mhm.
this is kind of how I would explain the difference. And yeah, I guess you can't really see it if you're listening to the audio, but check out the YouTube if you
I can
guys
kind
are.
of describe it. I can kind of describe it, right, from based on what you said.
Okay.
It's like connection is when there's an energy flow from both ends moving in from
Yes.
left to right. Attachment is when there's only one energy flow and not two streams of energy coming, like communicating back and forward.
Right. Absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
Because, like, let's just say holding hands, right?
Mm.
You need the other person to hold down too, right? Otherwise, it's fucking weird. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you're there, you're trying to hold their hand, you're interlocking with fingers with them, but their hand's not pressing down to hold with yours. So you're attached right there. They close their hand, that's connection.
And then you have those people that, you know, when you try and shake their hands, it's like a dead fish, kind of. You're just like this.
Oh, fuck, I hate that shit, dude.
I hate that so much, bro. It's so annoying.
It's like your fucking hand is like a limp dick, man. Get this shit out of here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I think we spoke some good stuff. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed talking this stuff. Everybody go and leave us a review. Take a screenshot of this, post it on your story, tell your friends, copy the link, share it. Like, I mean, why not? Like, I mean, you could save somebody. Like, some of your friends might be going through some shit and they're not even telling you. And you being like, hey, you know what? I'm listening to this podcast. You being a little bit vulnerable, and they're like, oh shit, you know, it's okay to have feelings, right? And then they learn all these cool stuff. So yeah, that's what I gotta say.
Amazing. Guys, hopefully my book comes out soon. I'll let you know. It's going to be on Amazon. So when it's out, I'll let you guys know. But yeah,
it's a book on neuroscience and theater and how it applies and how you could just change your personality by, you know, being like an actor, right?
Totally. Yeah.
I have a book out as well. I want to promote it real quick. It's called Command Respect, Learn to Set Boundaries Using Consciousness, Psychology, and the Law of Attraction. It's really good for people who are empaths. It's very good for people who have been in codependent relationships or who struggle with like saying no, or who struggle, you know, being able to communicate with the right words what it is you want to say. That's how I see it. A lot of people have used it, and they like it because they're able to communicate with their partners and their parents better without leading into arguments as much, right? So yeah, everybody, peace out.
Peace and love.